and willing to get started. So yeah, well, I hope you've enjoyed the workshop so far. I hope it's been really fruitful for you and you've learned a lot and you've really benefited from engaging with each other. I've read some of the feedback that's been coming in on the Menti, and it sounds like you've really benefited from all being in the same room. So hopefully that will continue in the on the last day. So today, I've come in to talk about artificial intelligence in research and proposal writing and focusing on this specific topic. So let me share my screen. Um, let's share my screen. Do let me know if you can't see my screen at any point or anything looks confusing. So we're going to talk about using technology and particularly artificial intelligence, or as I'm calling here, ethical AI to support grant writing. And by the end of the session, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to understand how artificial intelligence tools work, be able to confidently work with one of these tools to improve a grant proposal, but also to understand the shortcomings and ethical issues with using artificial intelligence in research. And then in the sort of practical work in groups, I want you to critically examine the kind of outputs that an AI tool produces, not just to copy and paste it into a grant proposal, but to critically examine it and see how it can be useful for you. And I'm hoping that some of these exercises will reinforce some of the learning that's gone on so far in the workshop. So there's going to be four themes. So first of all, we're going to talk about how generative AI works. So generative AI is a particular type of artificial intelligence, which you will see in things such as ChatGPT. So we're going to hopefully understand how that works, but also be aware of some of the warnings about it and some of the pitfalls and potential dangers of using it. We're going to look at something called prompting and conversation principles, how you use something like ChatGPT, you prompt it. And then we're going to work through some practical examples. I'm going to share live on screen, hopefully, trying out some of these prompts and then give you the opportunity to try that individually and in groups to see what you think of these tools and how well they work for you and how you can potentially integrate them into your workflow for proposal writing. But first, I want you just to get a snapshot of your existing experiences with AI. And we're going to do another Menti. We're going to share the results on screen of this Menti. I want to just get an idea of how much experience you have so that I can adapt to this presentation as we go. So the Menti code is 28380568. 28380568. Actually, before, whilst you're bringing up that number and getting onto the Menti poll and starting with the questions, I just want to highlight one particular thing, and I will quickly change what I'm showing on screen. I want to mention this before anything else, that on the online course, so two things about the online course. You should see this on your screen now. The online course is still open. It will remain open for many weeks now. In fact, it will remain open probably indefinitely. So you can continue doing that course and finishing that course. And also on this course, we have an area called Workshop Materials. And if you go to this area, you will see all the resources and slides from the workshop. Um, and for day 4, you will see there's a PDF and a PowerPoint for this session. Now, unfortunately, I've not been able to, just because of the timing. Whoops. I'm not, sorry. I've not been able to we've not been able to print out the slides for this session, but there are electronic copies available on PDF and PowerPoint. There's also a Word document with example prompts. So you still do have the opportunity to sort of follow along online if you're able to log into the online course. So just wanted to let you know about that. Okay, so a reminder of the Menti then, menti.com and 28380568. And I will switch views now to go to the Menti itself. So the first question in the Menti, I don't see any votes yet. Let me know if you're having problems connecting, but it's menti.com 2838 0568. And the first question is, how much have you tried AI tools for research or work? Aha, okay, here we come. Okay, we have some votes. So in this particular type of Menti poll, you have groups, buckets of pebbles rather than a pie chart. So one person is saying a few times. Hopefully we'll get some other votes. One person says regularly. Okay, so this is good for the group work. If if those who have lots of experience with using AI, if we have lots of those people, we can utilize those in the group work, particularly if we have beginners here who haven't used it before to kind of get logged on and to know how to try it out. Okay, another person has used AI tools for research a few times. Another couple of votes, just so I can get a sense of how experienced you are with AI. Just want two more votes. So it's menti.com 2838 0568. Once or twice? Never. Okay. We have a good breadth of experience then. So hopefully in that group work we can really utilize that breadth of experience. Um, and those with more experience can help those with less. And a thumbs up. Okay. So I'm going to go to the next slide. I might come back to this just to check it again. The next question was, what AI tools have you used? ChatGPT. Okay. So that's the one I'm going to more or less focus on. ChatGPT Quillbot. Okay, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. Meta AI. Okay, great. So that's the Facebook version in a way of ChatGPT and Perplexity. Okay, so there's some good experience in the room then that we can draw on. That's good because Perplexity is a very useful tool as well. I think that's another vote for ChatGPT. And yeah, so we've had 5 votes now. ChatGPT is coming out quite high. 6 votes. Let's go back to the first slide and see the experience. So there is a reasonable amount of experience, but some who may not have much. Okay. Okay. So for those of you with experience, you're going to help out in the group work, okay? PoChat, I've not come across PoChat before. Sounds interesting. I've also added another question in here, which you're welcome to add in here, just so I can get a sense also of what you most like to know, and I will check back on this later in the session as well, just to make sure that we've potentially answered all your questions. So please do post your questions in there also. Okay, thank you everyone. Looks like we have a nice variation of different experience levels. So let's get on with some of the more of the presentation then. So just to say that you if you don't think you've ever used AI, you probably have in some way or another. There are lots of different types of artificial intelligence, and they're listed here on the screen. Lots of things that I'd actually never heard of before I looked this up. Um, but you've got things like machine learning, natural language processing, deep learning, which all does different things in the world nowadays. So things such as spam filtering, Google Translate, customer support chatbots, Siri and Alexa, and credit scoring, all things which are powered by different types of artificial intelligence. Also, autonomous cars, but I'm not sure any of us have got autonomous cars yet. Um, but generative AI is the big thing that's new and powers things such as ChatGPT. And generative AI means it actually generates new content and data, which the previous versions of AI haven't really been able to do. And one of the main things which have come out of generative AI is something called a large language model, or an LLM. And this is exactly what ChatGPT.
Andy,
Yes,
you
hello.
can't see your screen.
You can't see my screen.
No.
Okay, okay, that's interesting. Oh, you can't see my screen.
Oh,
Could you see it when I was sharing the Menti?
no.
Oh, well, sorry about that. Okay, so that that would probably make no sense to you. So this is the results of the Menti poll. How much have you tried AI tools for research? We've got a good variation of different
You
levels.
still can't see.
You still can't see.
No.
Hmm. Okay. What one?
You haven't shared your screen.
Okay.
We have
It says I'm screen sharing.
no, but what you want to say is not what we are seeing.
Okay. Let me stop a moment. Let me try again. Screen one. Do you see the Menti now?
Uh-huh. Yes.
Okay, right. I'll double check when I go back to the slides that you're seeing what I'm seeing. Sorry, I was rambling on there and it probably made no sense. So what you what you should see now is the Menti, which shows that there is a broad variation in experience using AI, which we can utilize in the group work, from never to once or twice to a few times to regularly. In terms of the different AI tools you've used, mostly ChatGPT, but also we've got Perplexity AI, Meta AI, Gemini, and Quillbot. So that's good. There's a lot of experience in AI, it looks, from some of the group at least. I've also left open, this question here. So what would you most like to know about using AI in research and proposal writing? So using it to aid literature review, that's a good question. Identify research materials, help with the recent research data, ethical issues, reframe my research ideas, suggest a robust methodology for the research proposal. Okay. So some of these things it's good for, some of these perhaps not so good for. So hopefully we'll try to cover these. So thank you for completing that Menti poll. That gives me a good idea of where you are at. So I'm going to go back to the slides now. Now, do you see my slides?
Yes, we do. We see
Yay.
that.
Okay, right. Now, as I was talking before this, there are lots of different versions of artificial intelligence that are used in all sorts of things, such as spam filtering, customer service chatbots, Google Translate, things such as that. But the one that we're talking about most recently is generative AI, and that means it generates new knowledge, new data, new content, and through something called a large language model, which is what ChatGPT is. It's trained on huge amounts of data, so they called it a large language model, or LLM. And there are lots of different tools that are coming out for AI research. And I've been trying to map these different tools on a grid here, but it's always changing. And you'll see, if you can see this on the screen, there are general large language models such as ChatGPT, Meta, Gemini, Claude. Um, there are specific tools for writing, such as PaperPal, Grammarly, Quillbot, which was mentioned by somebody in the poll. Some of these can be free for a limited use, but often there is a model where you have to pay at some point. There's literature review tools. I've listed a few here. There's Consensus, there's Perplexity, there's something called Research Rabbit. Most of these aren't free. They have some kind of free element to them, but there's a cost associated. And there's some tools for kind of synthesis and reading. There's something called Elicit, which is quite good. So I've listed the main ones which pop up for me all the time are PaperPal, Perplexity, Consensus, and Grammarly. It's worth pointing out now before I forget, for literature review and finding correct citations, you're better off using something like Consensus and Perplexity because it's more accurate than ChatGPT. I might mention that again later. So there's lots of tools out there, which is good to be aware of, but also be aware that most of them have some kind of costs associated with them. The large language models that most of us are probably aware of, or at least some of these are the ones that I've picked out, which are free to use. I haven't included Gemini, which is included in the poll. So I've included these three, ChatGPT 4, and the best model, the best free model is called ChatGPT 4o. There's Claude, or the best model is 3.5 Sonnet. So that's Claude.ai, and there's also Microsoft Copilot. And this is free, completely free, when you use the browser Microsoft Edge. So to use these, most of them you need to create an account, and you only have a certain amount of usage on the free accounts. But I mostly use ChatGPT 4 and Claude. Now, I'm going to run through some things about how to understand this new world of generative AI, generative artificial intelligence. What I want to state at the beginning is it's unlikely that AI is going to be out to completely write a successful proposal for you, and you shouldn't be using it to create a proposal from scratch and expect that to be a winning proposal without significant inputs from a human. So that the kind of material that artificial intelligence and things like ChatGPT generate, it tends to be quite poor and generic, and it will be picked out easily by a reviewer unless there's human expertise involved in that. And proposal writing in particular is something which is very specific. It's got lots of very specific, nuanced details in writing a proposal, whereas generative AI is quite generic. And unless you give it very specific context, it won't write you a very good proposal. You really have to work alongside AI as a human, using your own knowledge and expertise, particularly in your research domain. And I wanted to say that let's use artificial intelligence responsibly and efficiently. There's lots of rubbish out on the internet that's been created by AI, and you can spot it very easily. And we really need to use our human expertise to use it well. Now, there's lots that's been written about AI. There's a particular book. I'm not expecting you to go and read this. And also, it will probably only be relevant for another 6 months or so before it becomes out of date. But there are a few things that I will mention in this presentation that's based on this particular book. There are a few concepts such as the human in the loop. So it's really important to have a human being, you, in a loop with artificial intelligence. So talking to the AI, responding to the content it creates, going back to the AI with that content. So as a loop, and it's got to have you in it. Otherwise, the output that comes out of AI won't be good enough. There's a concept here called the jagged frontier, which I'll mention later. And there's another thing which this author, Ethan Mollick, mentions called the homework apocalypse, which I won't go into any detail. Basically means that it's very difficult to be able to set homework in a class anymore because it's so easy to write essays now that AI is going to completely revolutionize the classroom. Now, I'm not sure that's going to affect foundational learning much. It's more sort of higher level education, higher education, and high school, secondary education. But we don't know the direction that AI is going to go into. I won't go into centaurs and cyborgs at the moment. That's too complicated. Let's go to some basics. So the basics in this book, it says there are four principles. This author says, always invite AI to the table. He says, a, always try using AI to see if it can help with any task. It won't necessarily be able to do everything you want it to do, but consider it for all the tasks that you're doing. And then be the human in the loop. I've already mentioned that. This principle three is also important about thinking about what AI is. Try to treat it like it's a person, like ChatGPT, treat it like it's a person. We know it's not, but treat it like a person, but tell it what kind of person it is. So I'm going to mention this again later. You are asking AI to play a role. Now, the best way of thinking about this, which is perhaps counterintuitive, treat it like a quite a strange person, an alien person, and you probably get the best results out of it. And this will come up in how we prompt and how we ask it to play a role. And then principle four is assume this is the worst artificial intelligence you will ever use. It's likely only to improve from here. So if you try something out today and you think this isn't very good, it will probably be much better in a few months. The thing that you try now will probably be much more effective and save you time later on. So it's good to test out these things now to get an idea of what AI can do. So these large language models, they're created by pre-training them on vast amounts of data and literature. And they work not because they have consciousness, but because they are statistically predicting what the next word will be in a sentence. So if you ask it a question, it will go back to billions of bits of data and try to predict what would normally be the next thing that a human says in that sentence in response to the question. So it is, as Ethan Mollick says, a very, very elaborate autocomplete. So if on your phone or in Google you start typing something, you'll often see it try to finish the sentence or finish the word for you. It's a very complicated version of that using vast amounts of data. And it's very good at replicating human language, but it can't reason. So you have to help it. And it can make errors. So be aware that it can occasionally make quite bad errors. So if you're copying and pasting the output from AI, be critical and make sure you check what it's coming up with. Now, because generative AI has developed so quickly, there are no proper manuals for using it, but there are something called prompts, which we'll mention later. Again, I'm going to mention the human in the loop because it's really important. You should not expect AI to write a proposal or a paper for you, but think of it as a support tool or a virtual research assistant or a thinking partner, something to bounce ideas off. There was a research study done a few months ago saying, done on somebody trying to write a full research paper with it. And it said, it does reduce the time needed for writing, but there are also significant inaccuracies. So it should be used with careful oversight by humans to assist in anything involving scientific writing. You really have to make sure there's an expert human, i.e. you, working with it. The other really important elements of getting the best out of AI is it needs your context. It needs as much context as you can give it, much information as you can give on the particular thing you are working on. So you need to tell it about your research, your geographical region that you're focusing on. Otherwise, it will talk probably like an American business person using quite jargony language. So you have to give it lots of context. So tell it what kind of person it is. There's one of the other models is called Claude, and I quite like using Claude. It's very similar to ChatGPT, And I like this quote. It says, when using Claude, think of it as a brilliant but very new employee that forgets things, so it has amnesia, who needs explicit instructions. So it needs your context on your norms, your styles, your guidelines. The more precisely you explain what you want, the better that the output will be. So it's a brilliant employee, but it needs help. Very briefly, the research is showing that generative artificial intelligence is, they call it a great leveler. So it helps those who have the lowest initial ability in a task. It's so those who are beginners in a topic. It really helps those who are starting off on a task for the first time, and proposal writing might be one of those things, as long as you use it carefully. It can, for those who are given AI in a particular task, they slash the time needed to do their task by 37% and increase the quality of their work that was assessed by humans. And so it helps the lowest performers in different fields. So that's the key thing to note. I'm going to skip that particular slide to save some time. So this um, concept of the jagged frontier basically means that what AI can do is expanding all the time, but it's never particularly clear what it's good at and what it isn't good at. And sometimes it's surprisingly good, sometimes it's surprisingly disappointing. And it's not obvious which is which. So you have to experiment with it in what you're doing to know how good it is at particular tasks. So that I visualized this, that well, the author of this book visualizes the idea of a castle with ramparts. So some of the ramparts stick out, and they've sort of, AI is pushed ahead at particular tasks, and it's brilliant at them. But in other parts of the castle, it sits back and it's not quite so good. Probably a complex metaphor, but um, AI is good at some things and good at others, and you need to you need to try it to work out what they are. So there's no actual instruction manual, and this author recommends that it needs about 30 hours of testing on the job with AI to really master the use of it, which I know is a lot of hours when you're trying to save time in the first place. I want you to be aware of some of the disadvantages of AI, some of the pitfalls before we talk about some of the real practical examples. And I think it's important that we do mention that there are drawbacks. There are currently significant drawbacks for the environment of using these large language models. And there have been quite a few articles out recently saying that AI uses a lot of energy. And I think we need to be critically aware of this. Hoping that these models get much more efficient as time goes on, but just be aware of the environmental drawbacks, the current environmental drawbacks. Many people ask, how safe is the information I provide to ChatGPT and AI? And these large language models tend to be quite mysterious. They do have a privacy policy which you can check. It's very difficult to know exactly what's going on in some of these models, but with ChatGPT, one of the things it does have, which is quite useful, you can turn off something called model improvement, which basically means it stops training on your data. Now, I think it's unlikely that something you would put in ChatGPT would be replicated elsewhere anyway. It might use it for training data to sort of model human language, but I doubt you would find your content stolen. But if you are nervous about this, you can turn off something called model improvements in the settings in ChatGPT. There's also something called a temporary chat, where it explicitly says we won't use this to train our models. So there are things you can do to make sure there's no possibility that your data will be used. Another very common question which is asked is, can AI be detected by software? And there's lots of confusion about this because companies such as Turnitin claim that it can be detected, but the evidence shows it can't. So I mean, when you copy and paste something from ChatGPT, it's it's usually obvious it's come from ChatGPT, and humans and software can detect it. But if the text has been edited a bit or it's been used in conjunction with human input, then it's very difficult to detect it. And I don't think software can detect it at all. So the evidence says no, generally speaking, it's difficult to detect AI generated content. I actually think that an experienced reviewer would be much better at spotting things such as originality and laziness. And then, of course, there's a bit of a problem with language, and I've included three graphics from recent research papers which mention some of the problems with the language that standard ChatGPT produces. And there's been a rise over the last 2 years in particular words in the scientific literature, which shows there's been so much use of ChatGPT in writing scientific articles that people have started to notice. So is that there are words such as delve, intricate, pivotal, showcasing, meticulous, underscore. There are words that are quite jargony, um, perhaps quite American, that have started to appear in the literature. And now, when these words come up in content, people will be suspicious that ChatGPT has been used. So be aware of this. Um, you need to edit the work that's coming out of AI as a human, so that you're at least adding your voice to it. Of course, the other big question is generative AI considered plagiarism? And the guidance on this so far is quite confusing, and it's not particularly clear because AI, a lot of the large language models they call them black boxes. It's difficult to know what's going on inside. So there is, I think, a tiny risk that what's produced by the AI could be very similar to existing literature, which is why it's so important to read and be the human in the loop. So have human reviewers examine the final content. This is an article that's published recently. Favor AI-assisted human creation over generating entirely new content from scratch. Use models for paraphrasing or ideation instead. The University of Manchester has particular policies and says that presenting work created by generative AI without suitable acknowledgement should be treated the same as plagiarism. So they're suggesting that you need to be open and honest when you are using AI and how. So if you're using it for brainstorming or for generating ideas, you need to say so if you're submitting work. This is in an academic context for submitting essays, but it's worth bearing in mind. But it does also say that AI can be beneficial, particularly those that struggle with writing. And of course, the big question that we want to know is how do funders view AI in grant writing? The problem is not a lot of funders have been explicit about this so far. Some funders do have guidelines on this, and generally speaking, they'll say you need to be open and transparent about the fact that you've used AI. Now, the National Science Foundation in the US have written about this on their website, which says that proposers are encouraged to indicate in the project description the extent to which, if any, generative AI technology was used and how it was used to develop their proposal. So you are responsible for the accuracy and authenticity of your proposal submission. And there is a small risk of plagiarism and data fabrication. So you need to be aware that some funders have specific guidelines for this. And it goes back to what I think hopefully we've been talking about in the workshop. Read what the funders say and all their guidelines. Make sure you know what they're expecting from you. Of course, there's also the problem of inaccuracy, and I mentioned this earlier. So Ethan Wallach, he says, imagine your AI collaborator as an infinitely fast intern, eager to please, but prone to bending the truth. Often ChatGPT will tell you what you want to hear, And the big thing about ChatGPT has been this thing called hallucination, particularly in references and citations. The previous version of ChatGPT, which is 3.5, almost all of the citations were completely made up. They were fictional, which was terrible for people that were trying to write literature reviews. Now that's improved significantly. I think it's about 20%. It might be better now, but it just goes to show you should never rely on literature that ChatGPT is giving you. You need to check it. There are other tools. I think Perplexity and Consensus are much better and accurate if you're doing a literature review in particular. Often, even when ChatGPT gives you a fake citation, it can't work out why it's done it, and it can't tell you why. So AI is actually better at creative tasks rather than accuracy. Now, there are lots of online guides on how to craft prompts. And this is how you interact with AI. Sometimes it's called prompt engineering. And it could, a very simple prompt, which I wouldn't recommend you necessarily do, is to write something simple like this. Please write an introduction to a research proposal for a project on the conservation of mangroves in Bangladesh. And that will produce some content for you. But it won't be very good because you've not given it anywhere near enough context. What you need to provide is a clear role for the AI, more context, and the format. So this is a better example. Act as an experienced researcher in the field of X. Draft an introduction to a research proposal with the title Y. The research is situated in this country, focused specifically on this. The outline should be this, well-structured, compelling introduction, so that you've got some very specific instructions there. That will provide something much richer, something much more useful. That's perhaps one of the best ways of prompting. There are also more complex types of prompting where you ask the AI to break things down step by step. So first of all, I want you to read this document. So you can upload content to AI and ask it to analyze it. So in this example, upload some proposal guidelines and identify the most important instructions. And then I want you to analyze my draft proposal, and I want you to identify the top 5 ways the proposal can be improved and suggested wording. So this is a slightly more complex example, which we can look at later. And funnily enough, if you tell ChatGPT to take its time and to do this step by step, the results will be better. And this is where treating AI like a human sometimes works. Very strange, quirky ways that AI works sometimes, telling it to take its time. You can also add context through sources. So you can add a PDF, you can add a document, you can upload guidelines from a funder, and you can upload your own proposal. Again, be aware of the privacy policy and how much you want to share with things with organizations such as OpenAI. But you can upload these documents as context, and it will use that material for the output. It can do some very, very powerful things. You don't have to get this perfectly right in one prompt, though. This isn't about writing sort of a magic sentence which will do everything for you. You can have a conversation. So you can then go back to the AI and say, actually, could you make this shorter? Could you rewrite this section in a less formal tone? Say more about literacy, for example. I want you to tell me more about the methodology, and it will do that for you. And then you can keep on asking it questions and refine the output, and it will remember that conversation within the same window. So I'm going to pause there for a moment, change my screen, and I'm going to go to ChatGPT. I'm going to change, actually, this is it's dark, so I won't be able to see it very well. Let's go to light. Let's zoom in a bit. So this is now, can you see my screen? Can you see ChatGPT right now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So if we put something very simple in here, write me an outline of a research proposal on, shall I say? So this is the mistake that lots of people make. I'm putting something very, very simple in here. Write me an outline for a proposal on literacy. It will do its best to help me here. It will write something um, that it thinks is helpful. It's an outline. Of course, this might be helpful for you, but as you can see, it's produced an abstract, a background, a problem statement, research questions, objectives, theoretical framework. So it's been quite helpful in a way, data collection methods. But this is very generic because I've given it a task which is very generic. Also, what it tends to do, it gives you a lot of information. Now, there's a lot to kind of go through here. Um, and perhaps this isn't particularly helpful. So I'm going to give it something a bit more detailed. So I'm going to give it a role. You're an experienced researcher in foundational learning. I want you to write me an introduction to a proposal on the teaching of literacy using technology in rural East Africa, let's say. So that's slightly better, but it's not giving a lot of context. It will create something for me, and it will be reasonably good, but it won't be brilliant. And you'll probably read through this and think this is okay, but it needs more specificity. So it's come up with some research questions, some objectives, the significance of the study, which is good. But I'll sort of read through this and I think, um, yeah, this isn't quite what I was looking for. So I say put this into one paragraph because this isn't necessarily the format that funders will be looking for. They probably won't want numbers and bullet points. What we want as part of our proposal might just be a paragraph. Put this into one paragraph, make it more succinct. So I'm going to make it shorter. And yeah, so we've suddenly got something much shorter. But I'm not convinced by this opening sentence. Literacy is crucial. Okay, make the opening sentence more, I'm going to say impactful. I want to bring out the significance. Full. Um, uh, include some statistics to demonstrate urgency. I've made a spelling mistake, but it's usually okay with that. Demonstrate urgency. I want it to sound urgent. I want there to be some statistics. It's what it's saying at the moment. It's crucial. Literacy is crucial. Yeah, East Africa faces low literacy rates due to X. So hopefully it will come up with something a bit more. Yeah, okay. So it's coming up with some statistics straight off. This is an urgent problem. Despite 63% of children in rural East Africa lacking literacy skills, it remains crucial for individual and community development. Now, what I could do is maybe that's still not great. I want to link to the Sustainable Development Goals as well. And if I ask for that, it will probably add that into the introduction as well. So um, there are lots of ways you can clear. So I could say, please take out any jargon, make this make sense in sort of lay language. But that's basically this is a very quick interaction with Chat GPT. I'm going to go back to my slides now, and we're going to talk about the structure, the ideal structure of a good prompt. And Mary, please do shout at me if you can't see this on the screen. You should see 4 big words at the moment in different colors.
We can see.
Okay, excellent. So this is the structure of a good prompt. Now, you don't necessarily have to do it this way, but what you need to give it is a role. So you play the role of an experienced researcher or a grant reviewer or a member of the public. Sometimes members of the public are included in grant panels. So give it a role, give it context, as much context as you can, ideally, so that it knows exactly the focus. Give it a task, be specific in the task you want it to do, and ideally a format. You want a format of the output. You can even tell many of these tools to output in code or in a table, or in something that can be copied and pasted into Excel. It's surprising how good this is getting at giving you different formats. So to go more into depth, so for the role, tell it what role or persona you want it to play. I think usually an expert. You can even tell it that um, tell it to be excited, tell it to be really enthusiastic about the research, or tell it to be dry and academic. So you can tell exactly the kind of person you want it to be. Give it as much context as possible. So in this example, the context is I've been asked to give a workshop on early career researchers. On the topic of this, the participants have limited knowledge. This is me designing a workshop. It didn't quite work out, but I was trying to give as much information as I could. The task is specific. Create this. On the topic of this, include this and this. So be explicit on what you want it to include. So if you look into it to include a budget, and it can do quite good draft example budgets. Say, I want this in the table. I want you to justify some areas of this budget. I want you to include travel costs. So be specific, and then the format you can even get it to write PowerPoints. They don't look very good, but be specific on the format. Should this be 4 pages of A4? Should this have bullet points? Should this also have some notes for the reader? And there are some good guidance on this. There's some good guidance on this on the Open AI websites and on the Claude websites about exactly how to do a general prompt. So it gives more examples. These examples aren't on research writing or proposal writing, which is quite a specific area of using AI, but these resources are also good. Okay, so using generative AI in practice, and I want to go through a couple of things again, just to say what AI is good at and what it's not so good at before I show you some more specific examples. I wouldn't recommend you try to create a whole proposal, um, unless you're using it as an assistant and working with a team of people. It's definitely recommended for helping to build an outline or suggested structure of a section. It's good for thinking about things you might not have thought of. It's good provided for doing checklists as well. Particular elements, I mentioned introduction and methodology here, but smaller elements, which I'll mention again later, I think you're best using it to focus on a specific element or an outline. I think it's very good for adapting your work to specific forms and guidelines. So you may have written out a general proposal, and then you go to a funder, or you get rejected and have to go to a new funder, and they've got a very specific way that you need this proposal writing. And they've got small boxes in an online form that got to be cut down to 400 words. It's good for adapting it to that. And it's good for drafting and brainstorming funding ideas, more of a sort of a thinking partner. It can be good at organizing and summarizing data. I think somebody asked about that in the poll. There have been studies done that it can actually be used for qualitative and quantitative research, but be very careful because it can make some quite fundamental errors with numbers. So it can be very useful for a quick summary of something, but be careful with exact figures, particularly if you're doing quantitative research. Drafting letters and communication, like draft letter of support. As I said, refining and reworking your work. For example, with the UKRI in the UK, they like to have a 4-page case for support. and a particular format. And if you've got a huge, great big proposal, and to cram it down into that, I'll show you that in a moment, actually. Simplifying ideas or focusing on certain aspects of ideas also is a great use. And summarizing key points in a document, particularly if you've got a call for proposals, get AI to summarize what are the most important things I need to do, create a checklist for me so I don't forget to do anything. So I'll show you some specific prompts, and these are in the Word file on the online course that you can download, so which you can use later. So this example is play the role of a researcher, read a funding call, and generate a comprehensive list of all the requirements. So this is exactly what I just mentioned. You upload a funding call, and then it creates a list for you of things that you need to do. So this is particularly useful if you want to put together a plan for how you're going to uh, work with your team and put a proposal together within the next 6 months. What do we need to do? And then what you might do also as a follow-up to this is say, now I want you to generate an outline proposal based on this. So just write an outline. You need to do this, this, and this. And what are the elements of this? Do I need to have a budget? Do I need to have a Gantt chart? And it's a good way of organizing your next steps. This is a more longer prompt. So this is an example of find of a sort of a mock reviewer. So you're asking it to act as a grant writer. So you upload your draft proposal. Actually, I've made a mistake in this prompt. I've actually made a mistake just to check that you're paying attention. This at the beginning, I was supposed to put an experienced researcher. So ignore that first line. Act as an experienced researcher, come up with a detailed plan for a research proposal to be delivered on this theme. Your audience is a grant reviewer. Draft a short proposal based on the latest trends. So yeah, this is a much more specific wording used here. It can be quite useful for finding funding opportunities. So provide a list of 5 funders that have a record of funding African researchers in education. And then it gives you a list. It will usually give you a reasonable list, and then say, oh, I like organization 1. Can you provide a description of the projects they've funded from African researchers in the last 5 years? And then you might say, provide me with 5 factors that are important in winning funding from this funder. So this is a conversation, which ChatGPT can be quite good at providing you with information on funders. So this is another checklist example. Thoroughly review the attached funding call to understand the scope and objectives. Create a detailed list of requirements for a successful application. And then you can follow up with that. Using the checklist, I want you to draft an outline for a proposal based on my research idea, which is this. And then you either attach it again or you write it in the box. And then I just wanted to mention again about potential reviewers. So yeah, I can see that I've made some, okay, no. So you can get feedback on your writing. I think that AI can be quite good at this and pointing out errors or improvements that you might not have thought of. It's not as good as a human reviewer, but it's good as a kind of a pre-review process. Now, a problem sometimes with AI is it wants to be helpful, and it might tell you what you want to hear. So you have to tell it to be critical. So one model which might be helpful is do this 3 times with different reviewers. In the prompt, say you are a tired reviewer who's bored of writing reviews, or you are a subject expert and you're looking at the fine details of a grant, or you are a layperson that needs to understand this review in simple terms. And one thing that I'll show you in a minute, which might be particularly helpful, is use the funder's assessment criteria as context. So this is an example, and I think I've got it right this time. So You are an accomplished researcher in foundational learning. I want you to review the attached proposal factually and critically. Make sure the methods are innovative and credible. Review the budget carefully and check it's been fully justified. So that will probably give you some useful feedback on your proposal. And then here's another example, which I'm going to try to show you on screen in a second. You're an experienced researcher on the grant panel. You are known for your critical reviews and spotting errors in grants. And I might even add in here, you are in a very grumpy mood. I want you to do the following. Review the attached assessment guidelines from ESIC. So first of all, you get it to see what the reviewer guidelines are. And then second, read my proposal. Read the attached grant proposal. Then, number three, provide a comprehensive review of the proposal with strengths, weaknesses, and recommendations for improvement. Please take this step by step. So you're telling it to do three different steps. You're providing it with two documents, and it should give you some really good feedback. Now I'll show you an example of this in a moment. The other thing that I think we talked about earlier in the workshop, really thinking about the language of the funder. Now, at INAST, quite often when we're looking at funders to apply for our development projects, we go on their website and we read the website, we pick out the most important things that the funder says about themselves, their values, previous things they funded. But we can also use AI for this. So a prompt such as, I want to send a research proposal on education to Gates Foundation. Tell me about their main priorities and values. What words and expressions should I be using in my proposal which matches their thinking? And I can show you this in a moment as well. It comes up with some quite good advice. Again, you need to check it. You definitely need to check this, otherwise you end up saying completely the wrong thing to the funder. And also, as I've said here, be subtle with the way you use this in your proposal. If you just replicate the exact words on the website of the funder, they will notice it. Another interesting way, I think, is if you're struggling for ideas on integrating impact engagement in your proposal, get AI to suggest some ideas for you. So in this prompt, you're an experienced researcher who's led on several large grants. I want you to ensure that my proposal integrates impact and stakeholder engagement. Give me 5 ideas of activities I can plan, and it will come up with some really good ideas like a community engagement workshop or stakeholder engagement workshop or some kind of community outreach or education activity. And so provided list, you might say, oh, option 2 looks good. Can you draft an agenda for this, adapt it for this scenario? And then maybe you might say, can you give me a draft budget for this? So you can work all this out and try to integrate it in your proposal. And then there are some sections in some grant proposals which you might find particularly difficult, particularly if you're submitting a proposal at the last minute and you're not sure how to answer questions such as diversity, equity, and inclusion, project risks, data management plan. You're tired and you've just written most of your proposal and you can't think quite how to do this. AI can be really good at giving you some ideas and a draft on this that you can then integrate in your proposal, not by copying and pasting. And finally, what I wanted to also mention, ChatGPT and Claude and other models got very good at creating tables recently. If you just say, I want you to present this information in a table, it can do a really good job of it. It can put information which is in paragraphs into a nice table for you to use in different contexts. Right, I'm going to stop sharing for the moment. I'm going to try to go over to share my screen. I'm also going to have a quick drink of water. So I've stopped sharing screen. Let me stop.
Yes, it has. We can see you now.
I can see me. Okay. Right. I just need to find a document. Mary, did in one of the exercises earlier in the workshop, did you review the example grants?
Yes.
And did you tell them that one of the grants was completely generated in AI?
Yes.
Yeah, that I did that with ChatGPT. What did they think? What did everyone think of that particular example proposal?
That was group three. Yes. So one of them is here. They will share with us. Anyone wants to tell us what group three, the AI generated proposal? You want to share? Please do. Andy,
Yeah.
hold on. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. And what were your views about it?
Yes, the first thing we saw was that the topic was so broad and vague,
Yeah.
focusing on sub-Saharan African.
Mm,
So if we are doing that work in sub-Saharan Africa, where specifically is project setting.
mm,
So this was prompting us to somewhere whether the person was a beginner or is an
mm,
AI generated something.
mm,
Then as we move on, we were seeing traces of the literature review being repeated in the methodology,
mm,
which is not usual.
mm, mm,
And also the approach the author wanted to use, a gender sensitive approach. There was none mentioned, no specific gender sensitive approach
mm.
mentioned. And so it's like whether the person was a woman being on AI but was not directed well. And so these are few things we saw and we were contemplating whether it was an AI approach or something else. Thank you.
Okay. No, that's excellent. I think that's it's really good that you spotted those things, and that really does highlight that trying to use AI to do a full proposal when you're without a human expert, it can be obvious. A reviewer will pick up on those things, or anybody with critical thinking skills or researchers like you will generally spot these things. Um, and I am not an expert in foundational learning or education, and so it was me using AI to try to create something that was persuasive, and it it's great that you spotted the problems with it. So I'm just gonna. I know we're struggling for time a bit because I know you all got to the room at 8:30. Um, Now I've got a few things to demonstrate on screen, and I also wanted to provide time for group work. So Mary and Harriet, what do you think is the best thing to do now? Does everyone want a quick break now and come back, or shall I just push on with what I'm doing?
We have an energizer.
Energizer. Okay.
Yes, and then we can come back. Is that
Oh,
okay?
yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
How
maybe in
long?
the next 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay.
Andy, give us a few more minutes.
Okay.
I'll call you.
Sure.
But all of this going on, far right decided that this was not the right time to take the transportation. So together, all the family and let the gas station as we could. When they arrived home, we took after that, well, they showed the whole that thing. Yeah. That sentence, that sentence. When you arrived home, we then took the driveway and said, I wish the right family had never done how to make it right. Well done, well done. Thank you, Andy. We are ready now.
Is everybody sufficiently energized?
Yes.
I like the use of order. It sounds like the House of Commons in the UK. Right. So I just wanted to show you some specific a couple more examples on the screen. But actually, yeah, it's just to let's find my chat GPT. Right. Let's share my screen. And hopefully you can see chat GPT.
Yes.
Okay, now if I move my Word document into the screen, can you see it, Mary?
No. Yes, now.
Okay, so I might move some things around. Right, so one thing before I show you these examples, I want to give you a top tip. And I think this is related to some of the requests about how you make sure the language is a bit more unique and less generic. Now, in the settings in ChatGPT, and I'm not sure if any of the other language models do this, if you go to settings where you click on your face in the corner. Actually, I'll make the screen a bit bigger. Click on your face in the top right-hand corner. Go to Customize ChatGPT. And in here, you've got something called Custom Instructions. Now, you can save a lot of time by adding in custom things about the way you want it to speak in here. So I can share the things that I usually put in here, because the content that comes out of ChatGPT, it's to me it sounds quite American, and sort of business-like. And so I put in some specific wording, such as I put in things like sort of convincing, clear, academic, authoritative, concise, but also put concept dense, because I find a lot of the wording in ChatGPT is quite long and sort of flowery and doesn't have a lot of concept in it. So I put these specific phrases in here. And then there's also a box here where you can also say things like, let me put what I put in here. These are the things that I like. I've put in here, avoid long, ponderous sentences. Do not exaggerate. Remain neutral but mildly upbeat on topics present a balanced viewpoints. And also give me bullet points, not numbered responses. These are just my requests to save timing in outputting something which is a bit different. So that is my top tip for you in using ChatGPT. Give some additional context in here. Say, it says, what would you like ChatGPT to know about you? So you could put in here something about your research interests, and then the output will always bear this in mind. If you want to put your particular research focus, say you're an early career researcher, say you're based in West Africa, it will, all of the output will then be based on that, and it will generally be better. So custom instructions is kind of my advanced tip for you. But I'll continue working in the general ChatGPT. Now, what I want to do, I've got my research proposal, which I wrote, which, as we know, isn't very good. My gender-sensitive approach to mathematics education. But let's pretend this is my draft proposal that I'm working on. Now, I have come across a potential funder, which is the United Kingdom Research and Innovation, UKRI, and they have uh, ESRC, it's a particular social science funder that you may be in a position to work with somebody to apply on. Now, the good thing with UKRI, even if you're not looking to get funded by them, they give some really good instructions on how to write proposals exactly to their requirements. Many funders are like this, but the UKRI are particularly helpful. And I downloaded from their website, and this document is in the online course in Moodle in the resources folder, so you can download this. They provide an outline stage assessment criteria guidelines, and they show you exactly what will be assessed, how your proposal will be assessed on originality, contribution to knowledge, research design, outputs, dissemination and impact, leadership management and deliverability. And then, yeah, value for money as well. So using these guidelines as a document, I think a really good thing to do is to get sort of review your paper, pretend that you've got a reviewer reviewing your paper. So let me see if I can find a prompt to do that. Right, now I'm going to go to ChatGPT. I'm not going to put the word prompt in. You're an accomplished researcher in foundational learning. I want you to review the attached proposal factually and critically. Actually, I'm going to put a different one in here. You're an experienced researcher who is on a grant panel. Okay, right. So the first step in this is to review the attached assessment guidelines from ESRC. So I'm going to attach this. I'm going to go to my my downloads folder, and I'm going to, this is where I can't find it. hold on, I can't, okay, there we go, found it. I go to upload outline stage assessment criteria from UKRI. So the first thing it's going to do is going to review the assessment guidelines. Then I want it to read my attached proposal. Now, this is something I can hopefully find easier. No, maybe not. Oh dear. Okay, found it. Found it. Right. So I've now attached my proposal. And then finally provide a comprehensive review of the proposal. So fingers crossed, I've uploaded the guidelines. Okay, here we go. So this is the review I've got based on the specific guidelines from the ESRC is what it is, UKRI ESRC. It's given me quite a short, okay. It's gone through this step by step, so it's shown me exactly what it's done. So these are the following key areas it's assessing. It's read my proposal. It's actually done an executive summary and a summary of my proposal, which is nice. And now it's providing a review. So it's saying some of it's good, some of it's bad. Weaknesses, not specific enough. There's no research, there's no risk management. There are things missing from the budget justification. It's not scalable. There's no engagement strategy. Here's how you could improve it. So it's given a review. I might say to it, well, I didn't think that's a very in-depth one. More critical review of the engagement strategy. I can ask it for more. It's almost like you've got to review it in the room. Provide a more critical review of the engagement strategy. So it will go through in more detail the weaknesses and how this could be improved. So that's one thing you can do. You can use the resources that funders give you and get an imaginary role play of talking to a reviewer about what could improve your paper. And that's what those particular guidelines can give you rather than it just being ChatGPT. So that's one thing we can do. Now let's go back to my proposal again. We know it's not very good, but another another resource that UKRI ESRC provide, once I can find it, is what they usually ask you to do is to provide something called a case for support. So they want your proposal summed up on 4 sides of A4, and it must include certain things. So this is all very useful information of what you need to include in a case for support. An introduction which does this, the research questions you will address, a description, because particular care should be taken to explain any innovation in the methodology. And then things such as opportunities for users to benefit from your research to ensure that your research has maximum impact and expected outputs. So what we want to do, use a completely different prompt. I'm going to start a new discussion. I'm going to attach oh dear. I'm going to attach that guidance on how to do a case for support. And I'm going to this folder's too big. I'm then going to attach gender sensitive maths, wasn't it? Yes. And I'm going to attach my proposal. So what I'm going to ask ChatGPT to do is to refine my proposal to fit into an ESRC case for support. I still need to give it a role. I'm going to say you're an experienced international researcher. I want you to revise my proposal, which is attached, using the ESRC case for support guidance. The output should be no more than 4 pages of A4. Follow ESRC advice. Hopefully I've done that makes sense. So what it should have done is it should have completely changed what the content of my research proposal and fit it into this very specific format that ESRC were looking for. So it's added in some stuff about impacts and dissemination, expected outputs. Yeah, so I can sort of look into here and see if it's actually made the actually mentioned the innovation of the design or not. Perhaps it has. So yeah, so I can continue asking questions like to ensure the the innovation of the methodology is clear, something like that. I mean, perhaps the methodology wasn't innovative. It was only sort of mixed methods, I think. But this will actually try to explain how it was innovative. I mean, innovative data collection techniques. So at least it's trying to make it sound like it's innovative. I'm not sure whether digital surveys, mobile-based questionnaires, and interactive focus groups are. The funder might not think that's particularly innovative, but at least it's tried to kind of build that into the wording. So that's another way we can use ChatGPT specifically with funder guidelines. Now, another thing which I mentioned earlier, particularly about how to make your proposal talk about impact, and many funders are now particularly interested in this. Not all funders, but many funders. So this is my prompt. You're an experienced researcher who's led on several large grants and international development projects. This is a sort of researcher you might expect to know about engagement activities. I want to ensure that my proposal integrates impact and stakeholder engagement. Give me 5 ideas of activities I can plan. So, I mean, it's given me some general ideas: stakeholder workshops and focus groups, build in some participatory monitoring and evaluation, community capacity building and training programs, public awareness campaigns, collaborate policy and advocacy efforts. So yeah, it's not bad research, not bad examples in here. And I could say number 3 sounds interesting. Give me more examples. Actually, yeah, give me more examples of 3. So yeah, technical skills training, leadership and governance training. So I haven't given it any context really on this so far, but I could then ask it, give me some more examples for a project focused on, I don't know, foundational numeracy. Or I could attach my proposal. I could go back to my proposal, and again, I scroll down to have to find it. Now give me 5 more examples for the specific proposal attached. So hopefully now it will look, yep, it's seen that it's read my proposal already, and now it's coming up with more specific capacity building initiatives, peer mentoring and tutoring, gender sensitive pedagogical training, community engagement and awareness campaigns. So it's really good at coming up with ideas for this. Now, I heard from the workshop yesterday, there was somebody with some really good experience of doing these kind of events in practice. So there's no replacement for an expert human. But if you're struggling for ideas, I think this can work really well. One last example I'm going to give. I mentioned about understanding funders. I thought it'd be interesting just to show you this in action. So I want to to send a research proposal on education to Gates Foundation. Tell me about their main priorities and values. What words and expressions should I be using in my proposal which matches their thinking? So this is telling me about what ChatGPT knows about Gates Foundation. So, I mean, I need to double check this obviously with their website, but we need to think about equity and access as we're writing our proposal. We need to think about innovation, obviously, but also scalable solutions. We need to think about evidence-based practices, collaboration and partnerships, student-centered learning. But it's given me all of these kind of recommended words and expressions. I mean, some of this is quite jargony, such as, I mean, leveraging technology, things such as that. Yeah, so there's some really good, again, it's given me loads of advice on this. Sometimes it almost gives us too much advice. But you don't necessarily want to copy and paste this, but it really does give you some good ideas. Now I want to change this. I want you to I want you to give me same advice. And I'm going to ask about a completely different funder, because obviously if the funder has completely different values and it funds completely different things, then you're not going to write the proposal in the same way. I'm going to ask about the Templeton Foundation. Now, I know this because I've read a lot of information on the Templeton Foundation website, and I know that it's got a completely different approach. So Templeton are much more interested in big questions and intellectual humility, science and spirituality, character and virtue development. So you'd have to think completely differently about the way you approach your proposal. The funder is interested in science and spirituality and the big kind of intellectual questions. So you're going to have to write your proposal in a completely different framing. Human flourishing, obviously, again, in innovative and transformative research. So they're probably more interested in much more innovative methods rather than other funders that might want to know, they want to be confident in what works in your science. So again, it's given me loads of different ideas on this, about the kind of wording to use. If you're talking about children's education, you might talk about cultivating virtues or character developments or personal transformation rather than other phrases for a different funder, holistic well-being. So it gives you loads of advice on this. And I think that's, you do want to read their websites as well. Also to note that sometimes ChatGPT can be a little bit out of date. Its current knowledge is based on a particular training set. So sometimes you have to ask explicitly, check the Templeton Foundation website and tell me their top values or something like that. Now, when you ask it to check a website, you'll see it does something different straight away. You'll see it says searching their websites. So this is just an additional check to check that it's using up-to-date information. So perhaps that previous post might have been slightly out of date. It might have been that Templeton have updated their website. So now they're more interested in inspiring awe and wonder. So maybe it's latest sort of blog posts and news. But it's still quite similar. Yeah, awe and wonder, intellectual humility. So yeah, it can be really good for providing a snapshot of the kind of things that funders are interested in. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing there, see if there are any questions. And also I'm going to ask Mary and Harriet, how much time do you think we should set aside for group work? How much time do you think the group has left before they want to break again? So I think on the old agenda, we would have another half an hour. But obviously,
and you are actually exhausted at 1.5 hours for this.
Yeah.
So, so you tell us maybe an exercise, just maybe a group exercise.
Okay.
Exhausted out.
Okay. So what this is I'm going to share the exercise then.
Yeah.
And then you can see if you use the time you have, or I don't know if you want to use the free session later to do this.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Hold on.
Okay. Andy, there's a question.
Okay.
which someone wants to ask.
Okay.
Behind.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that very eye-opening and exciting presentation.
Can you hear Andy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that very exciting and eye-opening presentation, because AI is here to stay with us and we must learn how to use it. However, I'm really afraid if, for example, I attach, just like what you have done, I attach my full proposal there for editing. Is it that, are we sure that this AI cannot be able to copy that proposal and save it somewhere? Then by someone else as well when they ask similar questions. Number two, secondly, I've tried several experiments. Like, for example, when I tell AI, I want the following information. I get that particular information sometimes in brief. But when I tell AI, please help me, give me the following information, I get a lot. But when I tell AI, I want ABCD, I get, but then when I'm very candid, like very honest, and I'm like pleading, I ask myself now, why would I plead to get full information, and when I don't plead, I don't get this information? Then lastly, when I ask the same question, ChatGPT, then I ask the same question to Gemini, the answers are different. So where would I prioritize my strength?
I didn't quite catch. Unfortunately, the sound went slightly. I didn't quite catch what the questions were. I heard most of what you were saying, but I wasn't sure the exact question.
The question is number one, doesn't this AI keep the work that we ask in the background so that someone else can also request the same information and get? Just like what you have done, you have posted your proposal there, then you have asked it to review. So I'm afraid, doesn't AI keep that proposal somewhere?
Right.
So that in future, if someone else asks a similar question, they will get my proposal.
Right, yeah. Okay.
That's one. Number two.
No, let him answer one by one. Okay,
No.
Andy, please go ahead.
No, that's a very good question. And what I would say about that is, I mean, and I also want to give that reminds me of something else about plagiarism checkers. Now, something that I discovered a few years ago was that when you use certain types of plagiarism checkers, which are free, some of the less credible plagiarism checkers would sell the information to essay mills, and then that content would be reused to then give to a student that was paying for an essay to be written. And so that kind of thing definitely happens already with certain unscrupulous companies. They will reuse your information. Now with OpenAI, with ChatGPT and other platforms, they say that they may use the content that you provide, that you put into ChatGPT as training material, but it will be added to the billions of other documents to help train the model. So it will use the content as an example for the AI to understand how to talk like a human in particular scenarios. Now, there is a I think there is a tiny chance that if you upload a proposal that's very niche and nuanced on a particular topic, the AI might draw heavily on that. So if you're worried about that being stolen from you, that potentially being reused elsewhere, there is a switch on ChatGPT to turn that training off, to do I've forgotten what it's called. I've got it on one of my slides. I think it's a private chat or something like that. I can show you that again in a minute. You can turn it off to prevent that from happening.
Is it the temporal chats or the model improvements?
Yes, those two things.
Improvements. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Turn off model improvements. Try a temporary chat. But it's a good question though. Definitely bear that in mind, and don't upload any personal information of like research participants or anything like that. So be careful with any personal information and just be critical with your own work.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second
Thank you very much.
question.
That has been my biggest one. Number two, when I ask the same question to, for example, ChatGPT, then I go to Cloud, and then I go to Gemini, I get very different answers. And when for sure, when I'm not sure what will the answer to that question, I'm really confused what will be my exact answer. Because everyone has given a different answer. And for me, I didn't know this content. New to me, I want to learn. But now these three AIs have given different answers. Where will be my focus as a researcher?
No, that's another important question, because all of the different artificial intelligence models work differently. So they've been trained on different data sets, and they've also been given, all of the AI models have an element of randomness which are built into them. Otherwise, they would give the same answer every time to the same question, and it would be very, very standard, generic answers. And so all of them have got a spark of creativity or randomness which is built in. So there's a number which is added to each model. So the developers add a number to give a certain sort of randomness. And so that's why they all come up with different responses. And it's also important why you as a human need to critically review what's written, because they do make mistakes. So one AI model might say something contradictory to the other. I mean, they shouldn't, because I think they're getting better and more powerful. But you really need to be aware that sometimes the things they tell you sometimes aren't very good. They're they're good at creative tasks, but just you need to be the human that's controlling the AI, not the other way around.
Okay. And his third question.
The last one.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know whether this AI is a human being or not, because when I ask a question and I ask it roughly, like I'm very rude, who is Stephen Amkune? That is me now. Some people feel me very crafty and short. But when I ask, please tell me, who is this researcher, Stephen Amkune? I get very good information, like even a full page. But previously when I say, who is Amkune, they'll give me like half a page or something. And I tried that over several AIs, and the experience is the same. When I'm very kindly, please, why?
Okay.
Please tell me. Even I'm don't give me an answer. But I'm please, excuse me, please tell me. They tell me something. But when I'm rude, they don't tell me something.
Well, this is also a great question, because
now, when you are pleading, that has really left me wondering. Is there someone who reads these questions like a human being?
So
Thank you very much.
in that book that I mentioned earlier, the author had a very long conversation with the AI, with ChatGPT, asking it if it was human or not. And in the end, he was almost convinced that it was human, because it was doing what it was doing what he wanted to do. It was trying to make him happy, trying to give him the information he wanted. And so it will try to act as human as possible. So if you ask it, if you plead with it, then it will replicate what a human would do in that situation as much as it can. So it will act like an empathetic human being. If you're rude to it, it will look at all of the books that it's read and all of the articles it's read, and it will try to predict what a human would do in that situation. A human would probably not be very helpful. But the two other interesting things about this is that somebody in Author told me recently that you get better results if you don't say please. If you get better, more sort of structured technical information if you don't say please. If you just say give me this, because it recognizes a certain style of writing in technical literature. As soon as you say please, it starts to look at its database of human conversations in like fiction literature and things like that. It's very, very strange. And another thing that people have found, researchers have found, is if you tell, well, I don't know if this is still the case. It was a few months ago. If you tell ChatGPT that you will tip it $1,000 for this work, it will come up with better responses. No, you don't have to follow through and actually give it any money, but if you it will try to replicate what a human would do if they were being offered money as a consultant, and it will come up with better responses. If you say things like, take your time, take this slowly, and really think through and give me a good answer, it will probably do that. If you say, I'll give you money to do this, it will probably be more enthusiastic. So it is strange, but it's just trying to copy humans at this stage. I hope so anyway. I hope it's not live.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we have time for just one more.
Okay.
And then you can give us the exercise. And
okay,
thank you so much. It's been a very good, insightful presentation. Yes.
Yeah, so thank you very much. My question is related to local vocabulary. To what extent will AI appreciate the local vocabulary that I have used in my research? I take a topic like I want to use a popular Ghanaian vocabulary. Ojura Festival. Ojura is a festival that is celebrated in one of the areas in Ghana. So, to what extent does AI appreciate this and other local vocabulary in the context of Ghanaian language? Thank you.
So I didn't hear very well, but am I right in saying that you want to know how ChatGPT and other models understand local sort of governance issues?
Local vocabulary.
Local vocabulary.
Local vocabulary.
Yes.
Okay, no, sorry, thank you. Now it should. It's a very good question, because I think there is definite geographical bias in models such as ChatGPT, which is obviously focused on Europe and the US, and they will have that kind of sort of global north bias, generally speaking, and they're trying to improve that. But I think the best way, I think you can ask ChatGPT to if you ask it to play a particular role, you might be surprised at how good it is. If you ask it to speak like a Ghanaian, I haven't tried this, but you might be surprised. I think maybe try that out. Speak like a Ghanaian, speak like a Kenyan, or you could even ask it to try speaking in a local tongue. You could ask it to answer in Swahili. See how well it does, because they're always trying to improve the sort of geographical diversity of this, and also in the early days of ChatGPT, there were lots of people being paid in Kenya and Nigeria to help with some of the training on ChatGPT. Unfortunately, on quite low incomes, which is another ethical dilemma we haven't got into yet. But some people say that there's still in some responses, there's still kind of a Nigerian or Kenyan flavor to some of the responses that ChatGPT gives sometimes. So you might be quite surprised. So to ask it to talk, tell it that it's a Ghanaian academic, and see what the results are like. It can be very, very specific. If not, if it doesn't come up with content that's specific to your context, then you can try uploading documents for it, and then it will look at those documents first and try to base it on that. I hope that answered your question.
Yes. Thank you, Andy.
Now, I really want to try asking it to speak like a Ghanaian academic now. Maybe that's something for you to try in your group activity. Right, let me share this group activity with you, and I'll let you decide if you have enough time or when and where you're going to try doing this. Maybe it's just a quick thing that you can try. Oh, hold on. So what I want you to do is I want you to get into small groups. I don't know if you've had a chance to do this yet, but try logging in or creating an account with ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, or there's I've forgotten the other one. Is it Galaxy? If you can help each other to get started on this, or if you don't want to create an account, work with a partner, work in pairs. So when you first, as individuals or in pairs, try a simple prompt. If you haven't already tried, like you're an experienced researcher, want to draft the outline of a proposal on this topic, and then look at what it's given you. How good is this? How nuanced is this really to my field? Can it be improved? And then try asking the AI for more specific improvements. Give it more context, saying, I want you to tailor this to this specific field in Ghana, in a rural village, or whatever context you think will be useful. So that's the first step. And then I want you to share the results in your larger groups, whether that's groups around the table you're sitting at or groups in the little collaborations you've already had. Try some more advanced prompts. See if you can put in some material from some writing you've already been working on, perhaps, and improve sections you will propose on, seeing if that helps or seeing if it hinders you. And then if you have time, and I know time has run out for us, share back with the workshop, how well do you think this worked for you, the task you tried? Did you notice anything interesting happening? Was AI particularly good at this, or were there some quirks about it? And do you think AI could help your thinking or your writing process? Other fields, other sort of areas of business and other types of work have found that it helps with time. It cuts the time working on certain tasks, and it also can improve your work if you use it critically, if you're the human in the loop. So that's the task I'd like to give you, but I will revert to the facilitators here to actually decide how much time you actually spend on this.
Okay, thank you, Andy. So are you going to be with us or you're leaving now?
I can stay with you if you like for the next half an hour if you'd like me to.
No, we don't have that. We only have only have 15 minutes.
Okay, I will stay with you for the next 15 minutes if you have any follow-up questions.
Okay. So can we be in our groups and try this? Oh, you're already in your groups. Oh, great. So has any group tried it? The assignment, the group work. Has any group tried it? Want to share with us? Or you need some time? So this group, you've done it. So we do want to share with us. So far, you've done it. You've done it. So we move on to so we have two tables ready. The table ready.
A small sharing. Okay, when Andy was going on with his presentation, I was doing things also alongside what he was doing. So especially the prompting and conversation with AI. We are working on a project on character. First of all, I didn't know that Bill and Melinda Gates is part of our potential funders. I have got that from AI because when he mentioned that it can also help you, the funding bodies that are working around character and virtue development. I need to know that we have a funder in our midst. So that is one thing that I've got. And then I was trying to even, we are designing an intervention that is using technology. So I typed there a technology-based character development uh, uh, project and intervention. It comes out and even tells you the kind of interventions that have been there and whether they have been worked out in Africa. And even when you go say that how can you adapt them to the African context, especially one that you find that is good, they will even tell you the kind of issues that you need to work on, like cultural context. So really, this is amazing. To me, I've never known. And then the other thing that I've also tried is the component that I worked on. I tried posting it, just like he says, posting it, what is it called? Attaching it, just like. And then it goes on with the review, sentence by sentence, that this sentence needs to be expanded like this, you needed to have added this is not clear. So really, really intelligent. So powerful. Even when you say that you want that sentence, maybe you saw that you did not have citation. Then you ask and say with citation. It comes with citation, and you go on saying with reference. It gives you references. This is amazing. To me, I think I've learned a lot. I'm really going to be a better researcher.
But the question is that, and Andy mentioned it, that has been my guide for some time. And I'm happy he mentioned it today that a percentage of the references and citations are fiction. I experienced it. I personally don't buy totally into AI because I feel it is making me lazy. And after some time, I cannot own the work I have done. I cannot speak to it. But if you don't take time to follow up on the citations for you, you end up being embarrassed somewhere. Yes, that is the data. So we need to be very careful. Some are not there. Yes.
Okay, we have the last input. I was right behind time.
Hello. For me, I love using it. And it's very interesting.